Are you frustrated when you see that your child is always on the receiving end of help? What if they could be a giver too? But right now, it seems like so many kids are on the outside looking in and wanting to be seen as they're good enough, wanting to be needed by other people. Well, in today's Art of Advocacy show, we're going to be looking at how your child can be seen for their strengths and their gifts and leadership skills. I'm going to be giving you my the gifted and giving framework, which is going to help you look at your child's strengths and connect that to ways that they can have more of a leadership role in their class and in the school. So, if you would like to have ways for your child to be known for their strengths, to be seen as capable learners, stay tuned because this show is for you. When your child gets too much help, when it's always this one-way support from other classmates or from adults, it can cause your child to think less of themselves. And I want you to know, by the end of this 15-minute workshop, you're going to see how to change this for your child. So, what I've seen as an advocate is that many parents and educators think more is better, more support, more support. And most people see your child with a disability or your disabled child through their lens of ableism. And they see it, yes, your child is in the position of needing help. That's the position that they're going to be in. And that's not what we want for our kids, right? And I look at interdependence, which for true interdependence, I'm a big fan of. However, when interdependence is just this one-way street, that's not the path that you want your child to be traveling down. So I know I think it's just so common for people to see someone with a disability and think of like, ooh, how can I help them? Or, what do they need? And instead, I want you to think about what it would be like, and this might be true for your child. What would it be like for you to always be getting help? I mean, maybe initially it's like, yes, this sounds like a good deal. But over time, that starts to eat away at your confidence, your self-esteem. And that's what happens to your child when they're always on that receiving end of getting help. So if you're watching live or in the replay, say hi so we can see you and let us know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see how many different states or countries we have represented. So one of the things that I was going to share was a story about my son, Dylan, who has Down syndrome. He is an adult now. However, I still remember one of these things that happened when Dylan was in first grade. Now, if you can remember back to maybe when your child was in first grade, if they're older, there are a lot of little first grade girls that want to mother other children, right? Your child's ever experienced that? And at the beginning, I think Dylan thought it was kind of nice. I mean, he had lots of attention from girls, which that was okay. However, as the weeks went on in September, it was like Dylan started getting to be more irritated than he usually is and just kind of snapping at people, which is like not his personality. And so the teacher and I talked, and I talked with Dylan. And you know what we found out was Dylan was tired of these little first grade girls always doing things for him. I mean, at first it was like kind of fun, but nah, not all the time. So his wonderful first grade, actually for 1-2 continuum teacher, Mr. Briggs Hale, had a class meeting, and they talked about helping and when is it appropriate to help your friend and when you want to step back and let your friend try it. And it wasn't a discussion centered around Dylan, because actually those little first grade girls like to mother other kids in the class too. And it wasn't just, the first grade girls, right? I mean, I think you see that a lot, and especially in younger grades. So what the teacher did was he was saying, sometimes we just want to do it by ourselves, and other times we want help. So then the class went into like, what are the different ways that you can tell your friend that you want help? And so they talked about, yes, let me just do it or whatever. For Dylan, he had a Dynavox communication board device that he could use, but he used sign language a little bit more frequently. So then it was like, oh, how about if Dylan gives a sign for help? That's when we know he needs help. And so the rest of the first grade year, the rest of his years, went a lot smoother when people understood that Dylan could do things by himself. And actually, he wanted to do things a lot of times by himself, right? And I think what we need to ask ourselves as parents, hey, Janice, she is here from Oklahoma. You're probably having a warm day in Oklahoma, aren't you? Thanks for being here. And yeah, any questions, ideas that are popping in your head, just type them in the comments. So as parents, I think, we look at things like strength-based IEPs, and those are like a wonderful foundation to have for your child. However, I'm not sure it always gets to where I want to see your child be. It's not like you just want to see your child accepted or tolerated, right? I mean, that's not what we want as parents. To have your child really have that true sense of belonging, to be valued, to be needed, and to see themselves as a contributor, like they have something to give these other kids. They have something to give the other adults in the school. So that's where we want our kids to be seen and known for. So how are we going to do this? Well, first of all, I think it's important, like I said, to have that foundation of a strength-based IEP. And then what I want to do is help everyone on the IEP team in the school community to understand that, yes, your child has these strengths, but how are we going to connect that to being seen competent and having a role where he's helping or she's helping other students instead of always being on the receiving end. So I believe in simplicity. Keep it simple. My husband reminds me. So this is what you could do. You can just take a piece of paper, fold it in half. On the left column, I want you to write down different strengths, interests, things that your child excels at, what gets them really motivated. So you have this list, and hopefully it's a long list, right? And it's something that you can come back to and add to. But for today, let's just have one list of your child's strengths, interests, things they like to do. And then on the right hand column of the paper, what I want you to do is think of how we could use that strength, tap into that strength, and have it turn into something that your child can do to help another student at school. Because that's what interdependence needs to be about, right? Interdependence is we get natural supports, but we also give natural supports. So I think where this whole concept of interdependence has kind of broken down is we have always assumed kids without disabilities can be in that helper role. So one of the things that you can do before you even start making your list of your child's strengths and their interests is to have a conversation with your child, even if they're young, and talk to them about things they love to do and what's fun for them. And, as they get older, the conversation can be more geared towards school. And what are the things that really light them up at school? Is there a special subject? Is there a special topic they love? Um, because I think when we're writing up ideas for how our child could be seen as capable, we have to make sure we see our child as capable and have a conversation with them. And it might look different, right? It will look different, right? I mean, if your child uses a communication device, you want to make sure there's words and phrases that they can use there to express what they love, what they're interested in. Um, so that first step is to have that conversation. And then together, you and your child and, maybe other brothers and sisters can make that list of strengths. And then I think it's really helpful for you to take that list of strengths and ideas of how your child can be in a helper's role at school to your child's IEP team and see what additional strengths and interests they can add to the list. Excuse me, to see what ideas the staff has about, oh, I just thought of a perfect thing that Johnny could do every morning, and I bet he would love it. So having some of that brainstorming time with the IEP team can be really helpful. And then, of course, you want to pick something that you think is going to be helpful to start. So I have some ideas, and these are just off the top of my head ideas. So just to give you a flavor of some of the things that we could do here. So let's say that your son or daughter is really into scouting, and they also have this really tight relationship with the custodian at school. So it's like, okay, Charmaine, so how are we going to combine scouting likes the custodian with what kind of a helper role, a leadership role could your child have? Well, here's what I thought of is have your child help the custodian raise and lower the flag every day at school. Now, that could be something that starts their day off on such a positive note because they get to see their favorite person, the custodian, have some conversation, be able to be responsible for, yes, I'm going to be here raising the flag when they take it down. At the end of the day, they use their scouting knowledge to help fold the flag. So that's how we could take this little interest and strength and tie it in and give your child a leadership role. So what's another example? So I think about how many kids are like a whiz with electronics, computers, tablets, all that good stuff, right? So let's say your child is this computer whiz and has it all figured out. And your child also likes to help other kids. Okay, so he's a computer whiz, likes to help other kids. But this one's a little bit easier, right? It's like, oh, help other kids with their computer. Yes. I mean, you could have, a couple designated IT assistants or something for your classroom or in the computer lab at your school. And your child who knows all the ins and outs of the Chromebooks, he or she can help their classmates when they need it. And think of what that does for your child. Like, I know something that other people don't know, and I can help other people. That's not a feeling that your child has very often in school. And that's what we want to change. So, what are some other examples? Um, how about your child is very organized? Like if you went to school, you would see the, it just like it would blow your mind how organized your child's desk is. Um, okay, so they're very organized. What else about them? Well, you know what? Since they started having science lab experiments, your kid is so excited about school. So, how are we going to combine a skill of being organized and liking science labs? Well, this one might be easy too. One idea is to have your child be in charge of the all the materials needed for that day's science experiment. And if there's different groups, he has to set up, or she sets up different trays with, each one has the right materials. And that is helping the teacher. Because believe me, as an elementary teacher with a science kit with lots of materials, having another student help set up all those trays with the materials, like, was a huge time saver for me. So again, what it is we want we want other people to see our kids as this whole wonderful person that your child is. So in the comments, let us know, what are some of your child's strengths or interests? And let's brainstorm what would be some ways that the school or the classroom could tap into those strengths and give your child some kind of a leadership role. So let me get a drink of water. So type in the comments. What are some of your child's strengths, their interests? And while you're typing those in, I'll give you a couple other examples. Here's one. Your child loves writing mystery stories. I mean, any other kind of writing? No. But you give him an assignment or her an assignment to write a mystery story, like, they are into it. And they also have this dramatic flair, and they've been in several school plays. Okay, so they like writing mystery stories, they like being in plays. How could we combine those? What do you think? Well, one idea I had was, how about they turn one of their mystery stories into a play for the theater class? I mean, that would be pretty cool, right? I mean, that's the thing. It's like, yes, our children have unique needs and supports, and we focus so much on that at school. I want us to swing the pendulum to the other side and say, let's start talking about how we can tap into your child's strengths and their gifts that they have, that they can offer other classmates and staff. Now, I know when my son Dylan was in college, he audited classes for 4 years at the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs. And when he was a freshman, he had a volunteer job at the child care center on campus. And Dylan worked with young kids, and one of his jobs was to read the afternoon story. Well, one of the books that Dylan loved to read to little kids was Brown Bear, What Do You See? How many of you know that book? Or how many of your kids wanted you to read that every day? So it was so wonderful because Dylan, like, for sure knew this book, Brown Bear. But what he added to it was he taught the kids the signs for the animals and the signs for the color words. And so that was like his own little spin. And I don't know if you have seen this before, but I especially young kids, I think they love to learn sign language so many times. So for these, I think they were like pre-K kindergarten kids, learning some signs. They were just fascinated that Dylan knew that. And so that makes Dylan feel better about himself, right? And that's the starting point that we need, right? For our own kids to feel good about themselves and to know that they are good enough and that they do have things to offer other people. So, what? Oh, hey, Angela. And I know Angela's in Arizona. She said, my daughter is an athlete, so she connects with people through sports. Yeah, see, and I know I've seen different pictures um, of your daughter, like on basketball and such like that. So then it's like, so how could we, or maybe she already has that, Angela. So, is there a way that by her playing on sports, does that give her that camaraderie? Does that make her feel better about herself? Does she see a leader when she's doing that? Does she see she's doing something that she really excels at? So let us know, because the one thing that I've seen sometimes too is kids will be like the PE teacher's assistant when they're like really athletic, and that's like a really strong skill for them. um And the other caution I want to say is, just because your child has an interest in something, we don't want to automatically assume things like, oh, Angela, your daughter's an athlete. Let's have her be the PE assistant. Like, that might be the worst thing in the world she would want to do. It's like, no way. No, thank you. So that's why you have to have that conversation with your child, and your child has to be part of that IEP team meeting, right? Because it's about them. Because we don't want to assume like, oh, we got the answer, we got it all figured out. The examples I gave you today are just to get some ideas percolating. It's not like, oh, this is the best thing that we can do. You have to check in, and you have to see if that's really going to be something that your child wants to do. um so yes, what other things do you have? I wanted to share a book with you. This is by Thomas Armstrong, and I saw him years ago speak at one of the Peak Parent Inclusion Conferences, and I've been a fan of his ever since. So this book I like because it's written for students. So I just really hope that more people look at this. And it's called You're Smarter Than You Think, a Kid's Guide to Multiple Intelligences. And what I love about it is it just has so many ideas in here for your child of how they can tap into those strengths, or if they have more linguistic skills than mathematical logical reasoning, how do they use those linguistic skills to help them when they're figuring out math? So I would really recommend this book. I think you'll love it, and I think your kids will love it. The other thing is, as a former teacher, it's like I would have loved to have a book like this. So it might be a beginning of the year book you give to your teacher as a present. So Yes, yes. Okay, so here we go. Hey, Angela. She says she has a great shot. So they actually had a play or two to get her the ball. How cool is that? I don't know if she would like to be a teacher or coach assistant. Yeah, and that's where you want to talk. But isn't that cool that they developed this play, this basketball play around what her strength was? How neat is that? I love it. I love it. And she says, thank you for the book recommendation. Yeah, I think you'll really enjoy it. Um, and Angela, that reminds me of a story when Dylan was in high school. He was in entered a theater class, and they were in small groups, and they had to write their own like one act play and present it. Well, Dylan was having a lot of trouble trying to remember all his lines and being able to articulate them well and project them. And you know what the kids did? He had a high school friend in his small group, and his buddy came up with this idea that was so cool. He said, let's turn Dylan's role into a king who cannot speak. And the other part of the play was to have these people do amazing things and, I don't know, come out and scare the king or do different things. And the king would just be there like, nope, I'm not saying a word. And it was just so interesting how the kids like rallied and came up with other ideas. So, yeah, I think we lose out a lot of excellent ideas when we don't ask kids. I've always been a big fan of having student input before we adults, with all our wisdom, try to come up with a plan. And she says, peers always come up. Yes, exactly, exactly. Peers always come up with the best ideas. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I Jeff Strelly was a parent leader in Colorado and has many years ago moved to California. But I remember a story that Jeff told about his daughter, Chantel, and that she had this habit of grinding her teeth. And it was like really bugging the other kids around her. And like you think, like, get over it, right? Well, you know what they did is they suggested that Chantel start chewing gum in class so she could get that motion, but not be that kind of nervy, unnerving sound of people grinding their teeth. And that was other high school kids that came up with it. Of course, then it was like, oh, can she chew gum? We're not supposed to chew gum. So it kind of got into something else. But yes, she became a gum chewer, and it just made the day smoother for her and for the kids that were sitting around her. So you never know what ideas kids are going to come up with. So I also want to recognize that as we celebrate our country's Independence Day tomorrow, that we keep in mind the whole concept of interdependence. And Angela, just think about your daughter. Like, she is a needed player. She's got a shot that that she's going to be making, right? That's what we want to see with our kids. We want to find more places, more ways that your child can shine, that your child can show, yeah, I have a disability. Yeah, I'm disabled. But guess what? I still have a lot to offer. So I hope you've enjoyed this show. Keep comments and the conversation going because I can come back afterwards and respond. So I hope you all have a safe holiday tomorrow and that you'll have some new ideas percolating so you can make sure your child is safe, happy, and learning every day at school. So I'm Charmaine Tanner, and we will see you in 2 weeks. So take care. And I could play the outro music.